So the people who do have that shocking reaction to me, they got to deal with it. That's not me. I'm still here to serve. They need to be responsible for their emotions around why it might be strange or uncomfortable to be working with me. And I think that, part of that responsibility for them to take inventory of their own emotions and actions is far beyond this office space. If they had that reaction right here and I don't choose to help them get through that reaction or those emotions, that means that they get to go home and do that work themselves. If they do so. And I'm not here to help them feel more comfortable of being around Black people.
Welcome to BossLocks. You are now listening to the next episode from our pilot series, with today's episode featuring Anna Marie Smith. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, then you may recall me telling you about a company called Inclusion. Well, they're a tech startup that is creating a freelance marketplace and job board for underrepresented professionals, and they are getting ready to host their first networking event, and I really think you should go check it out. I myself am going to be there because, if COVID has taught us one thing, it's that we can collaborate and work with people from all around the world, not just our own 15-minute commute. So anyways, I'll tell you a little bit more about it halfway through the episode, but as I think about today's episode and everything going on with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Oluwatoyin Salou, Rayshard Brooks, and countless others who were taken from us, I'm taken back to 2017 when LeBron James responded to a racist vandalism incident at his home by sharing that being Black in America was tough. Now, it was a simple message that conveyed a lot to people who were really listening, but as we've seen over and over again, other people just didn't quite get it. The concept that a superstar experience hardship was a bizarre idea that was easily dismissed as I asked him to shut up and dribble. Well, in today's episode, we end up taking a deep dive into what it's like to be Black in a city known for being progressive and how it can actually be anything but that for Black people. I really think you'll find what our guest today has to say. I think you'll find it very interesting. So, without any further ado, thank you for listening, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 5, Leaving Liberated with Anna Marie Smith. Hello world, I'm your host, Walter Gaynor II, and I would like to welcome you to BossLocks. BossLocks is a media company founded to redefine professionalism, encourage diversity and inclusion, and prove that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. Now, today I have the honor and privilege of speaking with Anna Marie Smith. How are you doing, Anna Marie?
Oh, I'm good. I'm tired. And I'm still up for definitely testifying to the point that you can definitely rock natural hair and be professional, as I am currently on the clock.
Love that, man. Love that. Thanks for taking the time while on the clock. Well, for those who do not know Anna Marie Smith, she is a financial counselor based in the Asheville, North Carolina area. She also teaches classes on money management, credit, budgeting, and everyone's favorite money topic, debt. Now, I have a bunch of questions to you. Want to learn more about how I can get my own financial stuff in order. But before I dive into everything, like who you are, what you're doing, can you name 3 things that most people just don't know about you?
Yeah, 3 things that most people don't know about me. That I am born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, yeah.
The specific reason that that's a shock is that there's a dwindling 12% of Black people here in this city. And the rest is predominantly white. So people usually who are Black and live in Asheville are not born here. They've maybe come from Charlotte or surrounding areas.
Man, that's definitely a surprise.
Yeah, I know. People react. And two, I have my mother has 8 children, and we all grew up in the same home together. And so, modern day families don't typically come in a package like that, where there are that many people in a.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm one of 8 kids, and we all grew up together under my mother's roof.
Wow.
And then three, um, something that people don't know about me is I am a 9, the number 9 on the Enneagram. And if you don't know what Enneagram is, it's a pretty cool personality test, which it doesn't like to be called a personality test, but it is. And the 9 is on a scale from 1 to 9. I'm a 9. And the 9 is the mediator. So it's that my position in this world is typically in between a lot of people and their differences, where I'd stand in the middle, try to see the best of both sides, and I end up seeing just that, the best of both sides, even if the right side is extreme and the left side is not. I'm in the middle and see the best of both.
See the true balancing scale.
Yeah.
Wow. And what's that test called? You said the Indie?
Enneagram. It's
Look that up.
Neagram. Enneagram.
Ah, gotcha. All right. Well, definitely want to touch on each of those. I'll go in order. So, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. Have you ever heard of CeeLo, North Carolina?
No.
I actually went to school in that area in middle school. It's right outside of Burnsville, really next to like Micaville, North Carolina.
Wow, that's
And
super rural.
yeah, there was a boarding school out there. I went there for 3 years. I remember they came down to like Charleston, where I'm from, and recently talked about the school. Sound excited, so I went. But kind of living there, I realized. I remember one day in particular, I saw one other black family. It's the first time in like 3 years I had ever seen another black person there. It's a culture shock. And so, just from your perspective, kind of growing up in that area, that type of environment, like how was that like for you?
Yeah, well, growing up in this area, honestly, Walter, when I was a little kid, we grew up in public housing, and so that in itself usually has an explanation or a description of what life is like growing up in public housing. But growing up in Asheville, which is a somewhat of a rural area, but not necessarily, it's got a city vibe, but it's rural. Um, I really didn't understand to what extent it meant to live in a rural area because my mom was extremely protective of what we experienced. So our environments were often controlled by her. I remember growing up in this massive public housing complex that I know of it today. But as a kid, I only thought that the space that we occupied on the bottom of that complex was all that existed. I didn't even know that there was a bigger piece of the projects, sort of see. I didn't know how big it was until I became an adult, and I was like, "Wow, this property is huge." But as a kid, we only saw the bottom part of it, which was just shut off to the
Kind
rest
of
of it.
staying in your area.
Exactly, and so I think my life is kind of that where not only did my mom do it to protect us, but I kind of do it for myself, being that I have never left this place. I've lived here my entire life. Here was controlled, so to speak, meaning I exposed myself or my parents would expose us to only what we wanted or what they wanted us to see. And so, yeah, I got a narrow scope, but as an adult, I'd say that growing up or living here in this rural area as a person of color is really difficult,
Yeah.
honestly. It's about, it's like a 180, in terms of what I experienced as a kid and what I experienced as an adult. I'm on the other side of in terms of what I see, and it's not pretty. That's for sure. Noticing that you are only part of the 12% of people of color here is very difficult. You look for spaces, and it's very challenging to find a space that represents you and your culture. say that it's difficult today, but I was oblivious as a kid.
So, no, Asheville has this the perspective when people talk about the city and living there, they always refer to it as a very progressive place. Do you find that it's true for you in your own life?
That is not my truth. No, I where that perception has come from. That Asheville is progressive. It's progressive if you were white and living further in the South than North Carolina, and that you came to North Carolina. Yeah, absolutely, we're progressive in that sense. If you came from Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, and you ended up here in North Carolina, you would definitely say that we're progressive. Been here your entire life, you know that to not be your truth. And so it is not my truth that Asheville is progressive. In fact, I think we're backing up a little bit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I see, is that we are either stagnant or we're backing up into post-civil rights is what I feel like. It's just very polished and cleaned up. But yeah, we're taking steps backwards as a city.
It's interesting you say that because I know you and I, we met at the Racial Equity Institute, and that was it was like eye-opening in an interesting way, because I think a lot of Black families who grew up learning about this is the way things really are and whatnot. But that event really taught me to look even farther behind the curtain and seeing things that happened like years ago and how they're impacting what it is today. So kind of how you said, like they polish it up a little bit. I see like a lot of things are, I guess, polished, reworded, different kind of language and whatnot as well.
Yeah.
Just in everyday life. Did that event? I guess kind of big from there. You probably started to see things for yourself. But did that Racial Equity Institute event, did that change how you saw Asheville in any way?
Oh, most definitely. It equipped me to like. I felt like REI changed my eyeglass prescription.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it. I like that.
Yeah, I wear prescription eyeglasses, and after REI, I think my prescription was changed, and so REI definitely helped me to understand the current ways that we use language to describe racial equity, but they also equipped me with the historic languages and terminologies of the lack of racial equity back then. So yeah, so like I said, it was polished up for us to kind of be perceived as progressive folks in the South here in North Carolina. But REI kind of opened up the box and said otherwise, that it is pretty much the same. It's just called something different now, and it's intentional. Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from REI was myself, in terms of what is it that I'm doing, and how easy it was that I've slipped into like this, let's call it like a coma. I feel like I've been in a coma for a really long time, where I was doing service for my community, and I continue to service my community. And that, oh, this is definitely digging us out of this hole of the inequities that we experience. Me doing my job, serving people, serving my community, is digging us out of this hole. When the truth of the matter is, it's based on REI. We're not necessarily fixing anything. We're just trying to patch people up to remain in a toxic environment, which is not really helping, right? It's just triaging things, but not necessarily getting to the root of the issue.
Right, it's like a duct tape fix on a leak or something like that. That was
Absolutely.
one of the biggest eye openers for me as well. Like a lot of these services that are needed, but they're not really solving the issue. They're just fixing things on a surface level.
Right.
That's kind of the wild things. What type of things were you doing in the community that you realize, oh, this may not be enough?
Yeah, and I do want to be transparent to say, like, we being, myself and you and any other person that can identify that they are serving their community, we are still doing good work, but
Mm-hmm.
it does not end there with us just doing that good work. We have to figure out ways to change the environment
Mm-hmm.
around us, whether that's home or work or your social circles and networks. Like, we have to make sure that those environments support us being healthy, and support us striving towards equity, our racial equity.
Mm-hmm.
But the things that I've been doing, which are helping to fix people, or at least stop them, I've served in so many capacities, from case support or case manager, in terms of folks who set out to want to do something, and that something might take them 6 months to a year to achieve, whether it be getting their driver's license, getting a GED, higher education, a job, just a stable home life, a place to live. People would strike out to achieve those things, and my job for a long time was to support them in doing that, by making sure that they have access to resources, and that they have somebody that they can talk to and bounce things off of, or somebody who's just accountability partner for them.
Gotcha. So, like someone who may need a license but might not be able to get to the DMV would kind of help them get to the DMV so they could go ahead and do that, or like register to
Yeah,
vote or something like that.
yeah, definitely physically making sure that they can access the thing that they want, but also helping them to assess, well, how do we get to this point where you don't have a driver's license, or that you don't have a home, like, because the backstory is so important.
Mm.
In every job that I've had, it's always been that I service the person and whatever
Mm-hmm.
they need. And whether or not I'm told to do so, I always go back to the story that got us here. And so I want to always make time for people to share their story as to how they got to today. Um, because that context is often voided, because we just need to patch you up right now, like, save this,
Mm.
just patch you up now. But my personal interest is in that story. And then it always ends up playing a major part of my job, even though it wasn't asked of me.
Oh, really? So you kind of go above and beyond to really see, okay, yeah, we're doing what you came here for. We got that done. But now let's really talk about what happened before all the dominoes that fell to lead you
Right,
here. So,
right.
all right.
Yeah, and in work, it can be called, going above and beyond. But I feel like it's just a human thing, human nature
Mm.
to listen to somebody's story. But of course, when you got the time clock,
Right.
makes it difficult to listen to those stories.
Mm. Do you ever feel kind of pressure to spend less time on the stories and more time just, I guess, churning out the tasks that are assigned?
Yeah, I feel pressure of that every day. And luckily, my work and the people have proven that it's still a benefit. And so sometimes I'll still make the sacrifice and compromise with what I'm supposed to be doing, to make sure that I also let this human being express themselves, which a lot of the times the world is not necessarily making space and time for just that.
Mm.
There has to be an outcome after that story. And sometimes there ain't no outcome, People just want to talk, they just want to share. And there's no product to come outside of that. And that's okay.
Right, that is okay because I feel like sometimes just having the chance to just share what's on your mind and get it off your head, that's in a way that could be the outcome, just that kind of relief, kind of grievances.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Right. Do you think it's interesting? You also mentioned that you're 9 on that Ingram scale as a mediator. You mentioned one of 8 children. Where were you on that scale between like 1 and 8?
Oh, I was number 3.
Number 3.
Older brothers, yeah, and they are very reliant on me. I was just sitting here texting my big brother, the oldest one out of 8, that he's more than
Yeah.
welcome to come to Asheville from Florida and spend the night with us, and accompany me on a camping trip. And he was like, okay, I'll do this and tell me what else I need. And I was like, it's grown. You know what I mean?
Family coordinator.
He like, sis, what do I do? And so I'm number 3, but I always felt like number 1.
Yeah, born a
Like
leader.
my mom and I, we tag team definitely raising the family.
Man, are you guys all kind of similar ages? At least for the most part, I know there's 8 of you guys, but pretty close in age, or is it spread out?
Yeah. Oh man, that's the funny part. Walter, we are all a year apart except for the last 2. She took like a 2-year break with them.
Oh, that's not even that long.
Right. I was like, it ain't that much
Wow.
of a break, but it was a break. So
Right.
we all have 1 year between us, and some of us will have an overlapping period of time where we're the same age, and so that kind of gives you more context as to how soon all of us came after each other.
Right. Oh man, that's kind of cool. Growing up, you kind of have like your own little army together, own
Yeah,
community in one house. That's awesome. Yeah, it's
it
just
was
me
great
and my
practice.
younger sibling in the house. Yeah, I imagine so. You definitely have to learn a lot of patience, I bet.
Hmm.
Oh man. And so you say your brother's in Florida. Is everyone else still in the Asheville area?
I don't have very many siblings left here in Asheville. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
there's 3 of us here. There's 3 in Greenville, South Carolina.
Mm.
There is 1 in Florida, and then there is 1 who is currently incarcerated. And so, yeah, we literally cover a little bit of ground
Wow. So, do you ever think about leaving Nashville
every day. Every
every
day,
day?
the past year and a half, yes, I contemplate where else would I like to be. And luckily, me fantasizing about being other places is not to run away from here, which I see
Mm-hmm.
people struggle with that. They leave from wherever they were in fear of the place that they were. Um,
Mm.
I'm not going to leave Asheville in fear. I just want to leave Asheville liberated so that I can occupy the spaces as just me and not necessarily searching for something to make me feel more comfortable. Like I'm comfortable with being here. I just have some work that I want to do so that if I ever want to come back home, I can find it and identify that this is still home. And right now, if I left and came back, my entire city would not seem as home.
And is that because you want to feel like personally liberated or kind of some other factors at play?
Yeah, I personally want to be liberated, and what that looks like for me is to just be able to look up and see representations of me and my history here in this city, which
Mm.
is extremely hard to do. I find myself in a restaurant, a black-owned restaurant that serves chicken wings, so often that I'm like, I don't even want no more chicken wings. I'm just here. This is the only black restaurant.
Right.
So I'm trying to make sure that, when I come back home, that I don't have to just stop at the chicken spot. I want to be able to stop into a space that also.
Ah, I see. That's very noble. There was I believe it was The Miseducation of the Negro, that book. Don't quote me because I didn't read it, but somewhere they said a lot of times what happens is people in black communities, like if they get a nice job or seek education, they end up leaving to go kind of achieve greater things, but then they forget about the community that they left. And so it never improves and they end up just becoming farther and farther away from that community instead of staying to fix it. And I kind
Right.
of see with what you just mentioned, you would love to leave somewhere else just to explore something new, but want to make sure that you leave it better than how you found it in a way. Is that
That's
right?
right. That was put beautifully. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's very noble. I love that because that's yeah, you're absolutely right. If you can make sure there's other restaurants, so more than just a chicken wing, a sandwich shop, soup, some like a smoothie stand too, come back. Like that just really helps you just continue it to become even better even after you leave. I love that.
Exactly.
Mm, yeah. So what are you working on that right now? Like creating more, I guess, equity or wealth within the community?
Yeah. So of course, in my day-to-day job, as you shared, I'm a financial counselor and financial educator on so many different topics. But my personal development has been in and around opening up a coffee shop here in Asheville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and people are like, "Oh, you love coffee, huh?" And I'm like, "I like coffee. I do love it sometimes, but it's not about the coffee. It's about a physical space where people of color can feel again just represented." And the only reason I know why that's so important is because I remember a few years ago, maybe 5 years ago, going into a coffee shop that I frequented often.
Mm-hmm.
That day, everything just hit me that there is not a single uh, paint chip or person in this building that represents me and my culture.
Mm.
Um, and I just literally, I feel like I had the smile wiped off my face while I was buying that coffee that morning. And I was like, this is not okay because I'm like, I've been here my entire life. The generations before me have been here. Two generations at least before I came to be have been here, and there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing here that has our mark on it. And I don't want to mark it up to just claim it as mine. I just want to go somewhere to feel remembered
Mm-hmm.
and remember my
Right, because you know that you did that.
right. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
space, and I want to make a culturally um, welcoming space for Black people uh, from anywhere, but specifically the ones who have had their roots and their time invested in this place.
Yeah. What's the name of the coffee shop?
I would call it Black Coffee and Culture.
Black Coffee and Culture.
Yeah.
That's I love it as a coffee shop too because I go to coffee shops to work a lot, and you're right, it is like oftentimes mostly occupied by white people, and it's so interesting that like when a new coffee shop opens up, it's like a form or like a symbol of like gentrification on the way. Like if a Starbucks is coming, I was talking to someone about, oh yeah, I was thinking about opening up a Starbucks, and then they're like, oh no, don't do that because then gentrification comes with it. I was just
Yeah.
thinking of it as like a place to make money, but yeah, and you opening it up, making it culturally welcome to Black people, it's almost like a how would I put it? I think a lot of times there's a stereotype that Black people don't drink coffee for whatever reason, but you opening up, making it known that welcoming to Black people just kind of like stops that opposite force and we're like, hold up, no, this is not just your thing, this is our thing as well, and kind of putting more ownership into kind of the Black community too. I love it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You said something, and I was like, "That's right." You said, Black people. There's this notion that Black people do not drink coffee, and I was like, when I was writing a lot of my proposals and grant requests to fund this project,
Mm-hmm.
I had to mention that that's not true. Like we drink coffee. Granted,
Right.
my grandma is only gonna drink Folgers because that's she just old school and she only wants it from home. And
Mm-hmm.
part of what I wanted to do with the shop is to make sure that we don't exclude anybody by what it is that we offer for a product, and so I want my grandma in my shop, you know what I mean? And I want her to feel comfortable and welcome as a Black woman from here to come into that shop and not feel washed out by whiteness.
Mm.
And
I
then on the
see.
other side, I want those gentrification dollars. So I already know that people love coffee, and
Mm-hmm.
that analogy that you were saying, with the Starbucks thing, when they come to town, it's an indicator that here comes gentrification. And so, with knowing that that's what's happening here in Asheville, I want to be able to, offer a space for everybody, which means white people too would occupy the space, but it's more so to get those gentrifying dollars.
Mm-hmm. Love that. And you already submitted the proposals and everything?
I've submitted a few grant application proposals.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them were not able to fund my project. And
Mm-hmm.
most recently, I also applied to be a part of Song, which I've mentioned is the Southerners on New Ground organization, and that fellowship is what it is. Comes with some financial support as well, and so it wasn't the type of cash that I need in terms of capital to do my project, but it is a great start. And more so, I think the benefit that I'm getting from Song is not monetarily, but it's very much the healing and the network that I need to push my project forward.
Oh, really?
Where mm-hmm.
You said Southerners on New Ground.
Yeah.
What is it like being a part of that group?
Well, we had our first in-person meeting just this past weekend, and it was just healing to be in a room of 35 Black queer people, Black queer and trans people, which I never thought I'd find myself in such a group because it's a bit radical for me to consider an organizer or an activist. I'm very much a mediator, and I don't like to stir things up, but I do issues, solve problems. And so being in this space, I was met with the opposite. I was very comfortable. I was very much able to see how organizing is in so many different packages, and that having a network of people that, such the ones that were at the gathering over the past weekend with Song, having that network of people is no amount of money can get me that. And this is also needed.
Yeah, especially now because it's interesting. Black, queer, and trans. You said that's kind of what the group comprises of. That is powerful because that's a lot of voices all in one group. And I think when you have just one person, like just a Black person, that could be a powerful voice. Then you have just a queer person, another powerful voice, trans, another. But all together, that creates like so much more support behind it too. So you can really go a little farther, especially in times like these where there's some attention towards these groups of people, but not always a lot of support.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So it's a group of, I guess, people like you who are looking for opportunities?
So it's called a leadership development group. And luckily, the implication with this specific group, Song, there is no implication that you did not have that leadership quality before. Mm-hmm. What this is aiming to, they're asking of us to come up with, or to at least declare what it is that we want to do for a year in terms of developing further our leadership skills and qualities that we already have. So you get to do somewhat of a self-assessment, self-assessment and a group assessment. And then on a larger scale, there'll be a group project. And so it's just so much support and networking that is helping you strive towards whatever cause that you wanted to work on. But, you'll do that plus something bigger than yourself.
Man, that is wonderful. And that's there in Asheville?
So Song is, again, Southerners on the ground. And so what that really means is that Song is located all up and down the East Coast, starting from Virginia on down.
Oh, wow. So really anyone can kind of sign up and join.
Anybody could, absolutely. It was more so of like an invitation.
Gotcha.
To those of us who identify as queer or trans, for starters, and also Black, queer, and trans. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a headhunt for who got these invitations, it seems like.
Oh, okay. So you got the special invite. Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very honored and proud to be a part of this. I didn't know what it meant until after this weekend. So now I can fully say that I'm honored to be a part of this, and I'm extremely proud to be able to do what I do as a Black lesbian woman living in the South.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. How's it living in Asheville as a Black lesbian woman? I once again, it's kind of like how it's talked about. So I kind of want to
Mm-hmm.
hear from your perspective and your life. But it seems like Asheville kind of going to that progressive mindset. It seems like it's pretty like friendly to the um, LGBT communities. Would you say that's accurate in your own life?
Asheville is Asheville can definitely hold space for a lesbian woman.
Mm-hmm.
I think that space gets tighter and more challenging as a Black lesbian.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you will definitely come to Asheville and notice that we hold space for our queer people, and they are well taken care of and well protected and very much known in the community. But I think when you add another layer to that, another description to that, and put Black in front of it, that's when you start to get into some stuff.
Oh, gotcha. The
Yeah, so
lesbian society, like, sure, open doors, but oh, oh.
right, and I'm like, cool. I'm glad that I can see that there's a difference. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's very apparent, and I will say that after having a weekend gathering with song participants, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was unaware that me being a Black woman identifying as lesbian in the South has privilege, because there is another group of people who do not get the privilege that I get to walk around in. And I would say that those are our queer brothers, or excuse me, our trans brothers and sisters don't have
Mm-hmm.
that I have, to just be me and to be super gay. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It gets a little bit more dangerous and challenging as a trans woman or a trans man of color.
Yeah, I know in the South is very like it's kind of interesting because now that you say that, I see what you're talking about. Like, kind of there is a lot more kind of social acceptance with being a lesbian now, but for like trans, I feel like that's kind of the same energy that being gay got before. I see that happening with the trans communities now. It's definitely like people
Mm-hmm.
don't like to talk about it, and when they do, it's just you know what people say now. It's like, oh, whatever you do it, but that kind of leads to more ignorance and kind of discrimination as well. That
Yeah.
community is just, yeah. Hmm. So I want to pivot just a little bit. Um, your role as a financial counselor
Mm-hmm.
in your city. So what exactly does that mean for you and your community?
Ooh, what it really means for me and my community is that there is a Black woman
Mm-hmm.
who is confident and proud to offer financial counseling, which is a very intimate space. I'm able and confident to offer that to other people of color, but not just people of color, but to everybody. And I think that there's a benefit in offering it to everybody instead of just offering it exclusively to people of color. That the people of color who are able to sit in front of me with financial counseling, um, which they bring themselves. Nobody is ever forced to come here, so people are voluntarily coming to have counseling around their finances, and I'm just grateful to be able to provide that to people of color. But I'm also uh, I feel like I'm in a daily uh, position of being educated or educating others when that person is not a person of color. I know that very few white people in this area of Western North Carolina have close ties to people of color. It's just not
Mm-hmm.
it really happens. Um, and I think it's fascinating that majority of my clients are white, and I get to offer them this financial um, lens and support in my Black body.
Yeah, that is powerful. Like teaching finance to white communities. Yeah.
It's liberating.
Yeah. I was like, you carry the. It's like you're carrying the torch, and now they have to follow you. But wow, do you find that they are kind of have the same energy as far as like they're voluntarily coming to seek counseling from you, or is it kind of like a surprise for them?
um, it could be both.
Mm-hmm.
We see so many people. I see so many people within a week that you know, a handful of them are very much surprised that it's me, and
Mm-hmm.
that used to be a little bit of a challenge for me to see that and witness that surprise, because I'm like, hey, what was the problem? You were game before you saw me. Like, keep that same energy.
Right.
So yeah, I learned a lot in how to deal with that. Um, and the way that I'm dealing with it is something that I know how to name now, thanks to song. But I had been doing it all along before. Is I think being able to identify that we have to be responsible for our own emotions and actions.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who do have that shocking reaction to me, they got to deal
Mm-hmm.
with it. That's not me. I'm still here to serve. Um, they need to be responsible for their emotions around uh, why it might be strange or uncomfortable to be working with me. And I think that, part of that responsibility for them to take inventory of their own emotions and actions is far beyond this office space. If they had that reaction right here and I don't choose to help them get through that reaction or those emotions, that means that they get to go home and do that work themselves if they
Mm-hmm.
do so. And I'm not here to help them feel more comfortable of being around Black people, or
Gotcha.
receiving services from Black people. And so I really I indulge in that moment where there's a surprise, and I'm not gonna even acknowledge the fact that you're surprised that this Black woman is who is about to support you towards whatever you want to do. You got to go home and deal with that on your own. And yeah.
That's powerful. I think a lot of times we're taught to make people comfortable being around you. It's not always like a for them thing, but more of like a survival aspect. But wow, so you say like once you started to realize, okay, I don't need to commit, or I'm not responsible for how they react or their emotions. You're still going to be you. That's when you started feeling more comfortable.
Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely.
Wow. How long did it take you to figure that out?
I'd probably say it took 3 years out of the four that I've been here. So I've really been leaning into and enjoying more so this fourth year of my
Mm-hmm.
of my tenure here at the organization. And like I said, it's because now these things have names. Now they have context as to how does that work? How does that thing work? And what I learned is that if I take responsibility for my emotions and I leave the client to take responsibility for their emotions, then we both
Mm-hmm.
way bigger and taller and more expanded than we were
Mm-hmm.
at this engagement. Because I had to put my stuff aside too, Walter.
Yeah.
All in the beginning of my my employment with this organization, I was asked to go out into even more rural areas of Western North Carolina, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out, why do you want to send the woman with the locks and the Black
Mm-hmm.
locks, who is also a lesbian, into rural Western North Carolina? Why would y'all do that? Is what I was thinking. So,
Right.
and what I had to learn in those moments is that those are my emotions, and I need to take responsibility for them. And as soon as I did, Walter, I mean, my work transformed. Instead of
Really?
very opposed to, working with, older white men from 2 counties away from here, which is basically just to imply that they're deep in the woods,
Mm-hmm.
um, to go there with my own bias and my own defense already drawn before I even see them was something that I needed to take responsibility for. And like I said, when I did, it made the engagement so much better. Because oftentimes that older white man doesn't mean any harm, or sometimes they do. But when I can control or take inventory of my emotions and be responsible for them, then it's just them who are left to deal with theirs. You know what I mean? So 50% of the work is done right there. I feel like if I can just take responsibility for my emotions.
I've heard of kind of taking responsibility for my emotions, and I feel like I practice that, but I feel like what you're doing is like a whole nother level. It's a whole nother sphere. Man, what do you have, like a mantra or something you say to yourself to kind of like keep yourself in check, or like how are you able to control, I guess, or accept your emotions and let them, I guess, not let them change your attitude or fears or whatnot?
One tactic, no, there's not a mantra, but there are a few tactics, and I'll use them interchangeably, depending on the day. But one is the listening part. You remember I was saying earlier how important it is to share your story, whether it takes 60 seconds or hours to do so. Imagine going into the back of the woods sort of county and serving someone that on the cover it looks like y'all don't have anything in common. You know what I mean? He's from the deep woods. I identify as the girl from the city, the inner city, and allowing him to share that story of who he is really helps me to take responsibility for my emotions instead of me drawing conclusions and sticking with what I see on the outside. There's so much, to that person. Then there's more to that man than a rebel flag. There's more to that person than a pickup truck with big tires or them living in rural North Carolina. There's more to them than that. And I think that we all deserve a chance to share our story. And that also means that oftentimes they have to hear my side too.
And so kind of leading with empathy.
Absolutely. I mean, that alone, letting people share their stories or making space for them to share that story is one of my tools. The other ones I would say are probably based from the 4 agreements. The 4 agreements have definitely helped shape my adult life. And one of my favorites is to not assume anything.
Not assume anything. Yeah, you're right. I like about what you said, like don't draw conclusions for people listening. What are the 4 agreements? I feel like that sounds familiar, and as you start speaking, it might pop. But what are they?
Don't make assumptions is one of my favorites.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Always do your best, which that is to say, from day to day, your best does not look the same. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. What are the other 2? Don't make assumptions. Do your best. I'm looking them up, of course, because we have at the tip of our fingers. Be impeccable with your word. Ooh, that one is so much fun. That basically means don't gossip. It's not healthy. But being impeccable with your word is something that I've been practicing with my friends, and they're like, "Can we ever, have a session with you where we just bash people?" And I'm like, "Yes, you can." Participate in that way. I will listen, but I'm not gonna be a part of that because
right. Don't expect anything from me.
Right. I'll participate, but silently. And then don't take anything personally. So do your best. Don't make assumptions. Don't take anything personal, and be impeccable with your word.
We're taking a quick break because I wanted to tell you about Inclusion, the company I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. So Inclusion is a tech startup that provides a freelance marketplace, and they're building a job board for companies that want to hire diverse talent for remote positions. And they are hosting their first ever happy hour and virtual speed networking event on June 25th from 6 to 9 p.m. This event will allow you to connect with others one on one for at least 8 minutes, chat about you, the things you're doing, and really get to know the other person in the chat room. They also have a nice virtual lounge room where you can really connect with anyone and everyone who joins. And I like this event because I think that now more than ever is the time to take advantage of these virtual events to connect with people from outside of your physical community. So if you're a freelancer, hiring manager, recruiter, business owner, or anyone who's looking for a job right now, this event is for you. Tickets are available now, so click the link. I added one to the description and sign up before the event is sold out. If you're unable to click the link, then you could visit our website, www.bosslocks.org. And in the show notes, I'll have a link and more information there, so you can sign up if you're interested. Thanks, and back to our show. That's how you do it, man. So, kind of speak further on like the financial counseling side, because I think that's something that now I'm starting to see more people paying more attention to financial literacy. I know I am, but you see like 21 Savage having like the I forgot what he calls
Jay.
it, but he's the oh yeah, and Jay-Z, of course, yeah. Like I see a lot more people creating these programs, camps, teaching specifically to the Black community as well. What's something about financial education, literacy, or maybe like a tip or something that you feel that everyone should understand?
Ooh. A tip would be um, whatever it is that you're doing in your life, or however you engage in your life. This is a personal tip that it just popped up in my head. I feel like it's an epiphany.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many um, signs and signals and blatant messages in front of our face that are telling us to open that door, open that conversation right there. And you just mentioned, hip hop and how a lot of our iconic figures in hip hop are starting to talk about finances and
Mm-hmm.
just how important it is to be aware of that nature around managing your finances or just being aware of them. And so I would say, the next time you listen to music, the next time you're watching television or the radio or talking to people, and you hear anything mentioned around finances, whether that be they mentioned their credit, they mentioned that they're broke, they mentioned that they about to get paid, like open that door up, like have a conversation. Um, not a structured one, but just, ask a question, be curious, because we all are very curious about the world of money management. And to correct a little bit of your language, we call it financial capabilities right now because the financial literacy term implies that we must have been illiterate before receiving that literacy, and we're not. So we are all capable, and we want
Financial
to make
capability.
it known that people understand that you are very much capable, or else you'd be dead because you didn't manage it. So
True.
capabilities is what we lean into. And so if it's popping up, whether it's a rapper who mentioned something about credit, or your grandma said something about spending money, open that door up. Like I feel like we've been getting our little there's bait all around you. Grab it.
Grab it.
And be
Double
real
down.
with the conversation, around money. Because if you don't start talking to your friends and family about money and just leaning into your capabilities around managing your money. If we don't do that, then we're just literally perpetuating this cycle of not talking about it and then relying on organizations such as the one that I work for to bring you fully up to speed, which is okay. But I want us to do some of that work and initiate it on our own because the conversation's all around us. It's just that nobody wants to step into it.
Mm-hmm. Do you
I
think
feel
that? Oh,
it's
sorry.
like
Go
a
on.
spades game. Like have you ever watched like a group of people play spades?
Mm-hmm.
and you like, man, I want to play, but
Yep.
table hot. It's intimidating, you know.
Right. Took me a long
Nah,
time to
get
actually. I
in.
still don't even know how to play spades, to be like 100%
That's
transparent,
okay.
because every single time, like, people are like, oh yeah, jump in, we'll teach you. I'm like, oh no, I can't just
It's
jump in.
intimidating.
Yeah.
Lean in, get into it. You go
hmm
one day, get
I
in
would
that
jump.
game.
I would jump at the table.
Mhm.
Man. So do you think like some of these conversations should be around like salaries, like how much people are making at work?
Oh, you know what? I just read something that said that we all should be actually discussing our salaries because behind it, you often find the bias. You find
hmm
the bias, you find the blatant racism, you find the systematic structural inequities because we didn't want to talk about it. But as soon as you found out a little bit, you belligerent, you pissed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a time where like I thought, I was getting paid like similar to everyone else, and there had been people there before me who were there longer. But then, like I heard someone mention, I was like, "What? What?"
Yeah.
But yeah, mm,
Yeah,
man.
talk about it. Whatever, whenever, whatever
hmm
comes up, strike that little match of curiosity, and man, I tell you, like things will blow up from there. Sometimes it's not the best, you know, thing that comes out of that. Leaning into that conversation, you might walk away a little bit empty. You feel like
hmm
somebody learned from you, but even that comes with a purpose. I mean, if somebody, left you on empty after talking about money, in terms of them filling you up or leaving you dry, if you walk away empty, you know, maybe that's just making room for you to fill it with something more intentional. But if you walk away from that conversation, filled up with something that you did not have before, that's success too. So I'm looking at it from both sides, the benefit of us having discussions around money in all sorts of ways, formal ways, informal ways, good, bad, and ugly. Like we have to talk about this stuff. And there's a benefit to it.
You know, one other question I want to ask you is, do you think there's any correlation between like financial security and mental health?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
Financial security, or just accessing access to money. Access to money is definitely impacting people's mental health. I, for one, have full health insurance. Fortunately, my company pays for that. I don't put anything towards it whatsoever. 100% paid.
hmm
But what I'm learning, Walter, is that when I go to seek, um, when I go to use my benefits in the form of a mental health provider providing me with service,
hmm
there's still a monetary barrier there. I got pretty good health insurance. I make pretty decent money. But Walter, to be honest, I feel like it's wrong that I'm still coming out of my pocket with my resource to ensure that my mental health is being taken care of.
hmm
And if I feel like if I know I'm in a good financial position and I still have a financial barrier to accessing mental health, I can only imagine what, other people are experiencing. And so, yeah, I mean, this is like it's not like we went and picked up a mental illness. We didn't purchase it off the shelf at Walmart. It's a symptom of some of these structural inequities, you
hmm
know, that we are traumatized and that we are impacted in severely negative ways. Um, and not by choice, you know what I mean? It's literally taking a walk on the sidewalk left you traumatized because of the way people looked at you or the fact that you were, stopped and frisked or, asked too many questions by law enforcement just for walking down the street. I should not have to pay to go and undo that trauma.
hmm Yeah, I love the way you put that. We didn't pick this up at the store. Yeah.
So we've been left with being responsible for it, but it's not like we didn't do it to ourselves.
Right.
I feel like I'm cleaning up other people's messes sometimes when I go and pay my therapist. Sometimes I'm
Yeah.
my own mess. And I like acknowledging those parts. But then when we get super deep, I'm like, man, I'm paying for, somebody else's thing and this ain't right. Because I
Mm.
source to sustain it, however long it might take.
Right. Man. How long have you sought out mental health? If you don't mind
um,
me asking.
no, I don't mind. Actually, I only sought it out as a recommendation from my boss. Um, they wanted to support me in figuring out ways to not be so disassociative, meaning I have a nature, a skill even, I'll call it. I had a therapist tell me that that's a skill. And so
Oh
I
yeah.
thought, I have a skill of being able to disassociate. I can be right there in the room with you, following you completely, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm check out. And sometimes that was healthy for me, and other times it wasn't, and it could impact the way that I work, quality of work. And so my leadership was able to say, "Hey, if you want to go, we'll give you so many hundreds of dollars and pay for it." I was
Wow.
like, "Yeah, I'm down." Send me.
Wow.
Oh, and that was an eye-opening experience looking for adequate providers, mental health providers. I went through quite a few that did not work out and could not understand that I wanted them to approach my mental health with a racial equity lens.
Mm.
And so I went through a few because they were not able to do that.
Right.
I've been able, fortunately enough, to find one that respects me and does exactly what it is that I ask of them, which is to, whatever we talk about, make sure you apply this racial equity lens to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you really kind of have to, because that's really your life. And I guess someone who doesn't understand that part of it may not be able to assist you in the best possible way.
Right.
Mm.
So that's been going on for 2 years.
2 years?
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Yeah, I think that might be kind of my next challenge, finding ways to bring, I guess, like therapists, kind of bridging that gap, creating more access so that that financial barrier isn't as prevalent.
Right.
That's mm. And thanks for sharing all that too. I appreciate you opening up. I think that's a conversation that isn't being had enough. I'm starting to get more popular now, and I think people are coming to see that it's needed, and more people are open to sharing about their own experiences. But yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Hmm. Now, I want to ask a couple questions. There's no right or wrong answer, just seeing like your thoughts on it. What does professionalism mean to you?
Off the bat, professionalism means you do what you do with integrity, which is even outside of professionalism, but it's definitely got an emphasis about professionalism. You should have integrity in what you do. And so if in any moment of you exercising your professionalism, you're not doing it with integrity, well, you've slipped out of professionalism and you just you.
Right.
So I feel like it's got to be approached with integrity. So if you're doing something and you feel great about it and you know you're doing the right thing and you feel all of that within you, then that's professionalism. And I've seen that packaged in so many different ways. I think I get some of the greatest professionalism from the least expected environments.
Oh, really?
Between McDonald's and Chick-fil-A,
Oh, right.
yeah, you talking about professionalism. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
how is it, in that service industry of, serving burgers and fries, is it that they can uh, exhaust more professionalism and make an example out of it more so than the people who have offices and cubicles? So, I mean, the fact that it comes in so many packages, I try to make sure that I bring that in as many applicable spaces as possible. So if we are in the grocery store and you do bring up something revolving around your finances because my face from or a campaign or something, like I'm gonna still approach you with my professionalism in the grocery store or at the club, like point blank. Work, because I don't need you to think that I'm not capable of that.
Love that answer. And so that sounds like it has nothing to do with like a clean look or anything. Do you think that your appearance and like present yourself has to tie into professionalism in any shape or form?
I think my behavior ties into it the most, and then
Mm,
everything else is kind of secondary to my behavior, to my actions.
I can
Um,
imagine.
I've been professional in a 6 foot green Barney suit. You know what I
Mm,
mean?
yeah,
I'll go out
yeah,
children financial capabilities dressed in a 6 foot green dinosaur, and I'm gonna be as professional as possible. And then I'm gonna take that suit off, and I'm gonna go and put, you know, the crisp, clean slacks with the button up, and pull my hair up and be tailored. And so,
right.
yeah, definitely. But my actions and my behaviors are what speaks to my professionalism first. And a few years ago, a gentleman told me that he works for HR for a local community college here. And he said, I saw this woman in the Walmart parking lot one day getting out of her car, a black woman. And she was on her phone and she was yelling and screaming and using profanity. Like she was going off in the parking lot at
Mm-hmm.
Walmart. He was like, she's at Walmart. She does what she wants to do. He says, well, lo and
Mm-hmm.
behold, 2 weeks later, the very same woman applied for an HR position at his job,
Mm,
and he is the head honcho, this black man. And he says, absolutely not. He says, I couldn't. He said, because in that moment, granted, she was in her own element, but he said after that interaction, he was like, she doesn't have the professionalism that, he wanted to see in the job. And so he used that against her,
mm.
and so I think oftentimes where we think we don't have to be professional and that we, you know, if you ratchet by night and professional by day, you got to make sure that, understand that people are watching you, even though you think that it's, it's closing time or nobody's looking and I can just, go back ratchet. Beware,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
'cause
that's
the
not to
bias is
take away
definitely
from
there.
who you are, but, you know, is there a healthy balance for you to exercise both? Show up as your full self at work and make sure that they understand who you are after work. But also after work, make sure that you preserve some of that quality that makes you who you are at work.
Thank you for that answer. I love that answer too, by the way. Um, so another, did you hear about? It happened last year. A guy named Andrew Johnson. He's a high school wrestler, and he was told like moments, literally moments before his match, that he either had to cut his hair or forfeit his wrestling match. Did you hear about that?
No,
Wait, sorry, say that again.
I said no. I had never heard that.
Yeah, yeah, he and he had wrestling matches before previously, so he's definitely been in environments where his school and also other kind of referees, officials, they said nothing about it. But this one particular basically was able to interpret the rules to his own liking. But I bring that up to ask you: have you ever been faced with the ultimatum like that regarding your hair?
Um, Other than my mother, no.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
And
I've definitely been approached by her to,
mm-hmm,
get Anna, like, you cannot wear your fro. Um, I'm like, why? Uh, and so, but not really. I think that uh, the rest of me presents, and let's be frank here, in a white world, the rest of me presents well enough that I
mm-hmm,
feel like my might be the compromise for them.
mm. I just able to
So
see the value.
I think, yeah, they know that if anything were to ever be mentioned about this hair, everything could be lost. You're not getting me anymore. You're not getting none of me. If you can't take all of me, you're not getting none of it.
Oh wow! So if you're presented with the opportunity to get like that perfect job, perfect lifestyle, um,
Mhm.
but in order to do so, you had to like cut your hair. You you'd be like, nope,
I'd be like, hell no.
hell no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hell no for 5,000, please. I'm not doing it.
But, so would you say, do you consider your hair, do you consider it a hairstyle or a lifestyle?
Mm, I did my hair. I locked my hair out of convenience several years ago, about 7.5 years ago.
Mm,
My hair out of convenience because I was on the go and my hair is kind of fine, and so a little bit of moisture or a little bit of something that I didn't ask for that day would literally turn my hair into a cotton ball, a big old poof.
oh yeah.
And so I was like, man, I got to know this because I was extremely sensitive on keeping it nice and neat back when I was younger to
Hmm.
again keep it nice. And so I twisted it, and the more and more ragged my hair became, in terms of like it was like super frizzy and just all over the place. I leaned into it more and more, and I was like, I dare you, I dare somebody to tell me to go and clean it up.
Hmm.
And so I kept it, and then eventually it locked up for good, and I started wanting to have it tailored. I wanted to have my hair, now that this is my defiant look, is what I was.
Hmm.
I wanted to clean it up. I wanted to polish it up, and so I remember the first time I went to a loctician, sitting in her chair and allowing her to, like massage my scalp, and then
Mm.
up and looked at what she did. I was just proud. And so, yeah, I would say today it is my life, my lifestyle, my way of life.
Started as a convenient way to style your hair, but turned into a lifestyle.
Word.
Mm. And so, is your hair care routine now still involve going to a loctician?
No, I stopped going to my loctician, which sometimes I just want to go sit with her and not have my hair,
Oh
styled.
yeah.
But fortunately, I'm in a loving relationship where the my partner is very talented, and they are much more enthused about hairstyles and manicuring my hair than I am.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, so I'm benefiting from my relationship being in one that my partner can style. They can be creative and they can hear me say I'm not really going for that look right now, and this is how I feel, and so they give me something to match how I feel.
Oh, nice. Wow, that's like a true like relationship bonding moment too. Kind of,
It
yeah.
is such a bonding moment. I love having them do it. I ain't gonna lie, I resist it when they mention it. I'm like, I don't want to. I feel like a little kid. Well, I'm not. And I'm like, I don't want to sit on the floor for like 2 hours.
Right.
But then they set that up for me to the point where I feel just as loved as the first time I sat in my loctician's chair. And so yeah, they really make me feel comfortable when they do it because I'm just antsy and I don't want to sit down.
Hmm. Man, that's beautiful. All right. Now, one other thing I want to bring, I'm not sure if you heard about this, but the Crown Act. It was passed in the state of California, and it
Yeah.
was written by Senator, oh, I can't butcher her name, Holly J. Mitchell, Senator of California. You've heard about it?
Is this when they're banning it or?
They actually passed a bill that protects people with natural hair. So you no longer discriminate people in hiring decisions or anything related to the job based on natural hair. And in the city of New York, this one's just a city thing, but the city of New York has like a fine basically. So any company caught discriminating based on natural hair could be fined. I don't remember the dollar amount, but it's in the thousands.
Okay.
Yeah. So these are is really only the state of California and the city of New York as of this moment, but kind of hearing that, and these are both passed this year, but kind of hearing that there are some changes. What, how does that make you feel, or what thoughts do you have towards that?
Well, I'm very grateful that somebody is fighting that that issue,
Hmm.
and so I'm grateful. And on the same line, I'd say that that's ridiculous. That we have to that somebody is investing their time. and energy and money into advocating for something that is like, what? That's none of your business. And that's not a measuring point or impact driver for determining how much work or how how high is the quality of your work. Like my socks, none of that matters to anybody else other than me. I put my hair up because it made me comfortable. I put these socks on because they made me comfortable. And I understand how we've gotten to a point in life where somebody exercised their privilege to the point of saying, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like that when they do that. And I'm like, that ain't none of your business. That doesn't hurt you, you know? It blows my mind, Walter, that, people are employed or put to work advocating some of these points. I feel like, I would much rather, and I'm glad they're fighting for me to have my liberty of, not being discriminated against about my hair if I were to reside in those places. But dang, I'm like, that's where some is having to be put. And yeah, it just blows my mind that we have those sorts of arguments or advocacy groups.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, and that's I completely agree with you. That's kind of one of our, with BossLocks, kind of the mission is to change that perception worldwide. Because, back in 2016, it was the U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. I think the 11th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals that basically said companies are allowed to not hire someone based on their hair. And it kind of came up this kind of chain of court cases ensued. The EEOC had reached out based on behalf of Chastity Jones because she was given a job offer but was rescinded because the hiring manager was like, the hair tends to get a little messy, basically. So it's it's crazy that, and that was 2016, 3 years ago. Oftentimes it's something that's hard to prove, discriminated based on natural hair, but yeah, it's definitely a real thing. Yeah. Well, Henry, I know you got to go. You got to get back to work. She's on the clock, but I want to thank you very much for taking the time today to kind of share your story, what you're doing in your community. It's definitely very powerful. And any way whatsoever I can support, I give my 100% support. But and before we go, is there anything else you wanted to speak on or talk about?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and when you offered this invitation at REI, I was like, what? Yeah, sign me up. Again, this was exactly what we started this conversation on, is how important it is to me for people to be able to share stories, have dialogue, have an investment in time with another person or another group of people is part of this work too. And so I'm super grateful for the opportunity to be able to share my experiences and to witness your genuine curiosity. That goes a long way with me when people are for real interested, in small talk. And so thank you for pouring into my cup. I feel like I'm good. I still have a healthy amount in my cup after this conversation, and you definitely poured into it. And I love being Black. I love being a boss. I love my locks. I love me, and I love my people too.
Thank you all for listening to BossLocks, a show that is redefining professionalism. And one thing that is really cool about this podcast is that we often only look to the future or what's happening right now, but we rarely take a moment to just reflect on how much we've grown. I know just from listening to the past conversations I've had in the past, it's shown me just how more comfortable I am compared to when I first started, when I really did not want my voice to be recorded at all. And that's why I find moments like the one I'm about to share so special. Today's interview was recorded about this time last year, and when I checked in with Anna Marie about publishing today's episode, she shared some really great news. She shared that she's recently become a director for a local nonprofit in Asheville called Green Opportunities. She's also offering financial education and counseling independently, like all on her own. She's offering these services to Black people, which is following her dream to see economic justice in motion for Black people in her community. She shared that not only is her dream to see it, but she really is looking forward to feeling that there's economic justice in motion for Black people within her community, her city, and that she's dedicated to being exactly where her people need her and where her gut leads her. And, just hearing stories like news like this is just really inspiring and just fills me up with hope. And it's just really powerful because it reminds me of what each of our guests have shared so far, which is when you truly know yourself and understand your value, you'll either find or create opportunities to pursue your dreams. And we're really seeing Anna Marie, who was already kind of creating and following her dreams, but now she's really finding new ways to do it independently and also work with nonprofit organizations who are doing some really amazing things in our city. So yes, if you'd like to learn more about the organization and what Anna Marie is doing, we have some links in our description, or you can visit our website, www.bosslocks.org, and that is www.bosslocks. Now, the last thing I want to share is just please take some time for yourself this week. This year has been a lot, and while a lot of we're experiencing right now isn't new, it's still a lot to experience all at once. And it's just really important to take some time to just check in with yourself and your loved ones to really understand how you're feeling and what the people around you are experiencing. And if anything else, you can always check in with me, as I'm happy to either listen or direct you to a safe space for you to share your thoughts and your feelings. I'm in no way a trained professional, and I just think it's important to talk to someone at times like these. And I don't care where you're located, if we've never spoken before, and honestly, I don't know. All I know is that we're all we got, and we have to get through this together. So please reach out to me on my website's contact form. Reach out to me on social media at BossLocks, that's BossLocks, or email me at info@bosslocks.org. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.